What poetry will we write today? Hello, everybody. Hello, hello. Activating all the right buttons. Good to see the Poetry Studio up and ready to go. This was actually not necessarily the song I intended to play this morning. But I went to go click on something in Spotify and it suddenly just started playing and everything was hooked up for it to play audibly. So I was like, well, this is not a bad song at all either. This morning I am planning on working through some of the greenery poetry, the forest poetry, things like that. We also have some poems I printed off from people that have emailed me, which is cool. So if they decide to show during the stream, I will be able to read those, which will be exciting. So what I'm going to basically be doing is I'm going to be retyping and pulling out from these 3 pages different clips of verse that would work well on a poem on their own. The end goal hopefully being a small little compendium collection zine of foresty poems. And then I would return, go back, do the same thing, stuff like that. LJ, good to see you in the house. Welcome back to the stream. I was looking at your response, your email response, and good morrow, indeed. Where you shared some of your own lyrics about the American news, as well as a prayer that you wrote some time ago. So I really like some of these, so I want to read some of these out. Good morning, Telemony and Dan. We're doing some sharing of some guests' poetry here. That's what I love about being in this space. Is it's a good place where we kind of get together, create a little bit. I know I talk about it all the time. Yeah, and so I think that the favorite line. So you get pretty specific in your lyrics to your song about the American news, but the part that I really liked was the last line, which this is for L.J. Gibbons's song about the American news. And this part here is the it's, I think, one of the coolest things I've seen, and your last line in this was just awesome. So I'm going to read this out. So he spends a lot of the time in the song talking about a lot of the challenges that are currently facing the country, stuff like that. And then he hits this. Says, so tomorrow when we wake up, let's get on the same page. A spiritual renaissance finally let out of the cage. But not if you exploit. Careful not to cross the line. That's not paranoid. Karma's working overtime. Karma's working overtime. That just hit me different. It was like, oh, that's so cool. You know, the fact is the response of the good and the bad that you put out in the world accelerates itself. Karma's working overtime. So thank you, Luke, for sharing your poetry, and then tomorrow we'll share a little bit from a clip from the prayer that you included in the email. Let's get into some of this nature poetry. And I don't really know where this is going to go today. I don't know if it's going to be that I write and rewrite, edit. It really could go plenty of different ways. Up! Telemony and Dan has recommended that we use Oliver. And I think that this is an extremely good time to use Oliver because I'm not writing final drafts here. This is great. Alrighty. So this is going to take a moment. Let's see. He says he's referring to racism in the first verse. Oh, yeah. Let's read this verse first. And so the order, and this was LJ's song about the American news. And so the order was given, but they all stood still, every last one standing there branding new will. Then they dropped to a knee and spit out their pill. No longer kept cattle in the streets did they spill. And then the rains came and washed the tears and stains away at last, and they were free from binding fetters of the past. Wiser knowledge now, not known before, but always right there for the taking. Once impossible, but now these opening doors Show 20/20 vision, no more faking. Show 20/20 vision, no more faking. Cool. Really, really, really neat stuff. Thank you, Luke. Thank you, LJ, for your verse. All right, so give me a second while I bring in, I'm going to bring back the audio here. I will be right back. And we're going to get to see an over 100-year-old typewriter in action today. I'm back. Sorry about that. So this typewriter is all set up. It's good. It is a green 1918 Oliver No. 9 typewriter. So this typewriter, yes, indeed, is over 100 years old. That is the request reuse Oliver function. It forces me to move on to this typewriter, which has a different way of typing. And if I go onto the camera, you'll see that the keys, they come down like this onto the page. This was an early visible model of a typewriter. And so it does a little bit of a different thing when typing. Now, I'm not actually putting out any keys right now. It also is cool in which it doesn't have a lever to do the line return. You just push on the button. And we're going to get started on typing. And I think it's a good, and I was saying before, it was a good day to use this typewriter because this is kind of just, you know, fun to type drafts on. It's very finicky, so I don't like to do finals on it, but the typeface on it is different. You can see there, need to make sure that my ribbon is moving, that the typeface is a little different, not your typical typeface, and it's also noisy as heck. So when it comes to ASMR, this is basically the equivalent of hitting someone over the head with a club. It is a wonderful, powerful machine. It does not do the multicolor, but it works. It's a funny little machine. Oh no, was that a sentence of sentience, says Daniel. Whoa. The older the typewriters get, the more haunted they are. No, it was just my test of the typewriter. That's great, that's great. Alrighty. And the other thing about it too, so each key, and you can kind of see it on this left side right here, each key has 3 letters. And you go, well, that's weird. Why does each key have 3 letters? And we'll actually talk about what these keys would say if they could talk. Each key has 3 letters, or 3 characters, I should say, because there's the lowercase, there's the uppercase, and then lowercase again, and then it shifts the other direction if you want to do symbols. So we can have this symbol right here. And you go, well, that's a weird symbol. Maybe you recognize this symbol. I can't really zoom, it's kind of hard to tell. What you're looking at there is that symbol right there. And maybe you can see that. So if these keys could talk, these keys would talk to you about the Spanish flu. Why would they talk to you about the Spanish flu? Because this is a 1918 pharmaceutical typeface Oliver typewriter. This typewriter was used in a pharmacy in the turn of the century to write prescriptions. And probably it would have written vaccines. So it is a really interesting piece of history to have, especially during the most current pandemic. It is a fun machine, but it's really cool to have this really unique typeface on it with the different keys. And what's funny is I got it, and like most people would get this type of thing and make it a collector's item, and the first thing I said is, no, I'm going to make sure this thing can talk. So I replaced the roller on it, the rubber on the roller, and it now can type wonderfully. And I've used it. I've actually used it at events. The kids really get a kick out of this one when they see it. But yeah, so you're likely to see a few typos when I do this because it's not easy to. It has a different, just a slightly different layout in terms of the keys. I end up mixing up my G's and H's a lot just because of the way things are set up. But it's cool. A cool machine. So thank you for redeeming Oliver. As long as I don't mess up the paper inside there. Now let's get to some poetry. See, there we go. I am messing up already because I'm trying to... That's what I wanted. Over 100 years old and they're still doing underlines. Ed Vaca is in the house. Welcome, welcome, welcome. We are writing poetry using a 1918 Oliver typewriter. Check it out right here. You can see it's a weird little machine. Ignore the lamp sitting on top of it. But I should probably take this and just, there we go. That's a bit better. But this typewriter is over 100 years old. Requested using channel points. If you are just joining us, we have changed typewriters. I'm trying to think of a good metaphor to describe a bed of fallen leaves in a forest. Something that's a little more atypical. Like I almost went with threads because those leaves will weave together into the soil. Yeah, the contemplation, I don't remember what the heck I was reading at the time when I got into this, but I was definitely thinking about the origin of the species. I was thinking a lot about how man used to be an animal, you know, that we used to not fill the air or anything with all these words. And I'm not saying it's bad that we fill the air with words. But it's funny because you go out into the forest with nobody around you and suddenly you feel that sense of, oh, all this talking is only what's meant to happen in relation to other humans. But then when I go and I try to talk to a tree, I just look like an idiot, you know? It's funny, like I was in bear country once and I was trained on how to approach bears. And they told us that you want to talk to the bear if the bear sees you, because it's like our equivalent of saying, it's our equivalent of making a sound. Like the bear does a growl or a roar, and if we say hello bear or whoa bear, then it lets the bear know we're here, and then the bear likely will run away because it doesn't want to deal with humans. Cordy19163 is in the house. Hey gamers, we are gaming with very old technology here today. Old typewriters. And so, it's so peculiar, though, that, like, we would speak to a bear. And that actually comes out a lot in the poem, in the poems that I wrote on that day. I wrote about this bear, about a bear hunting. Oh my goodness, let me read this. So I'm going over some work that I wrote in the forest as part of a daytime retreat. Solving a thing without solving. To forget myself and cease the organs I can never cease. The bear hunts with full spirit. No doubt. No second guess or critical thought. And I feel my history, a lineage of cowards sprinting in the forest. The rules I have changed. I wish to be mauled by the bear. Become separated from the questions and be the answer. And so, and I later on write about Brother Bear, and it's not about being killed or wanting to die. It's about how we, kind of seeking a self-sacrifice, but having that sacrifice done to you. Like, it's so much easier to say, oh, this person is forcing me to sacrifice, than to choose to sacrifice on itself. And the bear is a massive symbol of the energy of the woods and the forest. I know I'm like on such a, like it sounds so new agey, but it's not, doesn't feel new agey to me. I think at this time I had listened to the song, this is probably around Watts Wave, and I listened to the song about how Alan Watts is talking about how the Buddhist monks will tell a student that they have to figure out how to do a fully intentionally good act, which you can't do because you're thinking about it and it makes it selfish. And the metaphor he uses tells a story about a man that's supposed to defeat a bear that reads all his thoughts. and he can only defeat the bear by accidentally defeating the bear, like in a fight. And it kind of relates a little bit to that like, there's this force of devouring that the forest has, but it comes, and the bear is the best way to manifest it. But the bear is ethereal. I promise you I wasn't high when I wrote all this, though it may have well been. I hear the bear in the valley below, calling for her little ones to find their way in their house. In their house. And part of the reason why I wrote about the bears was because I had been given fair warning that bears did roam in the area. So there could be possible I could be sitting there writing and a bear would come across my path. And I can tell you that I definitely heard bears, but none of them came by me. It was a very contemplative experience to do this writing in the forest. So let's get back to the poem about silence. I think that there's just going to be a lot of writing that comes from this, that dwells in this. Look at this. I'm kind of like in awe of the stuff that I wrote in this time. Reaching tendrils of me, grasping for the not there. The mountain is yours, she said, but nothing is mine. I am not the clothes on my back. Tendrils of me want to create the imaginary rules misguiding and tying me down, like trails reaching into the mountain, patient for the day they disappear. Interesting stuff. So let's get back to writing. And let me know if you have anything that kind of spurs from this, any thoughts, any meditations. I think the biggest thing that the poem that I'm writing about right now is kind of my interpretive take on the, if a tree falls in the forest, there's no one there to hear it, doesn't make a sound. If I walk into the forest and I do not speak, what happens to words? Luke says, "Wick, thank you, man." Letting this unfold. And there we go. You got your bell. Cordy19163 says, "I did not expect this to be your music taste." Well, I think that the lo-fi instrumentals that Akira does are awesome, and they range across genres. And I've always enjoyed all the different genres he's taken, and they kind of very dwelling and very meditative. And they, like, it's funny because you have things like backbeat combined with string. Like, that's what I'm hearing right now, the backbeat combined with string. And it kind of it lulls into a sense of work. For me, at least. I feel like classical is... I thought you would consider music created after 1800 to be sinister. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. No, I think that what the forms of music that were created in the classical era, we just reinvent and reform into new genres. I mean, I think that everything is, something like in that range. No, I would find it absolutely not sinister at all, actually. All right, let me get back to our typewriter cam. Twitcher Alex is in, and he is using up his channel points once again to de-hat me. Make me drink water. And yes, I am wearing pants today. I have my jeans on. So you missed it. There were like several days last week when I was not wearing the pants. But this morning I got my morning off to a good start. Got my run in early on. He's waiting for the time that he catches me wearing shorts. It happens. I promise you it happens. Morning, Forza. Good to see you. And good morning, Twitcher Alex. We're working on typing poetry on a 102-year-old typewriter today. I'm working through some of my forest poetry. Twitcher Alex says, do they still make typewriters? If so, highly unlikely that they're made to last 100 years now. That's pretty cool. Indeed, they still do make typewriters. So they are being produced as new in China and a couple of other overseas companies. As you guessed, they are not built to last. But part of that is because I don't want to blame the companies and say, oh, it's just some, Chinese manufactured crap. No, that's not what it is. They actually have a lot of good intention that they put into the typewriter machines. The challenge is that there was a lot of financial support and infrastructure that supported the typewriter business in its heyday. Maybe not as early as this. This is pretty lucky to have a machine as good as this. Like that the Oliver company got real lucky with their machines. But in the heyday, like the 20s through the 60s, I would say, it would be very easy to get typewriter equipment. It'd be very easy to get the metals. The whole supply chain was built. So it's one of those things that more companies breed more possibility for more typewriters. And now that's not the case anymore because there isn't supply chains. So there's just one company making it. And so it becomes very cost prohibitive to make typewriters. Cordy says, the deep lore of typewriter manufacturing. Well, I mean, I collect them, so I know about the ones that they're currently making. And there's a couple of people that are going to be making some attempts to make new typewriters. And, you got enthusiasts everywhere. They came out with a scrapbooking typewriter called the We Are Memory Keepers typewriter. I would recommend anybody, if they want to get a good laugh, to Google it and read what typewriter enthusiasts have to say about that typewriter, because they say nothing kind. It is not a good machine. It doesn't line up. And there were times within the heyday of typewriters where typewriters weren't that good. If I ever break out my Sears Cutlass II, which is basically a Royal typewriter from the 60s that was rebranded, whew, that thing is rough to work with. I don't like it. So yeah, it's just like any other products. There were the goods, they were good products, they weren't that great products. But yes, there are still being typewriters technically made in the world. But the best typewriter is a refurbished old typewriter, not a brand new typewriter, even though they would probably go for the same on the market. Very interesting how that works. I feel naked without my hat, Twitchy or Alex. That was actually one of the most fascinating things that I... Thank you very much, Cordy, that you like the hat. I like the hat, too. It's a fun little hat. It's a Stetson. I bought this in Gettysburg, actually. Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. One of the coolest things, and it's a line I just wrote, that I noticed when being out in the woods, quiet, sitting there, was that you can hear the wing beats of the birds. Not the big ones, the small ones, but the medium and the big ones. And there was this raven that was flying around left and right. And you could hear the audible beat of the Raven wings, and I thought that was just the coolest thing. LJ has requested a deep cut of a Meaning Wave song, and so we'll play that. I gotta just get to it on Bandcamp. One day he's got to get his Akira's got to get his Bandcamp stuff up on well, I gotta get that on Spotify. All right, let's see. It's Tom Waits. Scrolling back through. I'm gonna find it. I will find it. Scott Adams, Be Humble. We're getting close. Just Joji, Wishes, some vibes. 1,000 Kisses Deep. We're getting close. Waits Wave. Got it. It's probably very fitting for our moment. And I'll tell you, I don't dig into the Bandcamp side of things as much as I should. There's the Laughing Heart and the Nirvana. Oh yeah. This one is one of my favorites. Yeah, I love this. This song is amazing. This poem is amazing. I've read this poem out on the stream too because it's incredible. Let's see here. It looks like my stream is being troublesome. Okay, let's see. Maybe that'll help. This poor little computer has trouble handling too many programs at once. That was Tom Waits reading a Charles Bukowski poem in a song that Akira the Don made called Nirvana, with the poem of the same name. Thank you so much for that request, LJ. I may not be able to honor non-Spotify requests in the future solely because they literally make my camera and computer crash. It was so bad that it was just skipping all over the place. I felt so bad for you guys. But I did finish the poem entitled If a Traveler Lays Down in the Forest. I am the quiet, connected to the pause of seclusion among the mountaintop, oft left alone. Trees quiet, with the promise to whisper the secrets of my roots. So much spoken without speaking among the leaves of seasons past. I grasp the mystery of very voice. Why does my uncaged bird sing so often, so barren and bound unto itself? Rustles are a sermon, and my eyes and lips, all sense learns speaking without words. I behold what once was nothing, the background into foreground upon the summit. Transfigured trees and forestry glow green, touch and sense of the wild. New wonderment over each vein of each leaf, each wildflower dazzling the eyes, soul lift upon the audible beat of raven wing. In the woods of our origin, where wordlessness speaks louder than words. If a traveler lays down in the forest. Well, Telmoni and Dan, I feel bad that you kept having to reload because of the screen. No, I should have something like a problem flash screen, which is this stream is reaching its capacity, something like that. Yeah. So that is if a traveler lays down in the forest. I don't think it's a finished product. I love it, and I'm getting into the themes now. Like I'm taking a lot of the rough stuff that I have from my writing here and taking it and putting it into these more understandable poems. I think that's the key here, instead of just fragments on a page separated by little lines like that. This one's fun. There's like a certain point I just typed across the page. Well, I'm glad that you guys like it. Thank you all for being here. Everybody that decided to come by today. Definitely going to be riffing off that today at work. Yes, with your job, I would say definitely worth it. Really appreciate everybody that popped into the chat today. LJ, Telmoni, and Dan, of course. And then Telmoni and Dan requesting Oliver, our 102-year-old typewriter. This typewriter is one of the only typewriters in my collection with a name. And I'm not going to say the name, but it does have a name. I don't like naming my typewriters. There's people that do like naming their typewriters. God bless them. But I don't name my typewriters, but this one has a name. Cordy19163, Twitch Hero Alex, and Fool Killer. And Twitch Hero Alex, of course, making me shed my hat. LJ wrote a poem on Quiet as Well that speaks on a similar plane. If you want to drop it in the chat before I finish thanking everybody for being awesome, you can read it. Otherwise, we can read it tomorrow. Fortstra here, of course, thank you so much. And everybody, the lurkers, the non-sign-ins, anybody that is choosing to come by the studio, I hope that this brings you joy and wonderment and happiness. And there goes my phone. I will think we're going to raid. Well, I think that Disco is playing, so let's raid Disco. Huzzah for Oliver, absolutely. So at the end of streams, when it's possible, I like to do a raid to a DJ with the music. You don't have to participate in the raid, but it's always a lot of fun to raid with the read a DJ. And this morning we're going to do raid Steve Disco Newsom. Thank you all again for being wonderful and awesome creative members of the human race. I will be back tomorrow morning at 7 a.m. where we will do more writing about the forest and maybe talk a little bit about our friend